I just got back from the post office. Had to buy $146 worth of stamps. Pretty tired. I had my birthday party last night. What's today? Today's Saturday. My birthday's on Tuesday. So I have 3 days left of being 25. Can't do a wedding video without my ring on. Okay. A lot of, I guess, the etiquette. I'm learning there's so many do's and don'ts with weddings. To be honest, it doesn't really matter. If you're the type that doesn't want to send these, you just want to send wedding website link, well then you probably didn't even click on this video. But to each their own. We don't always have to follow the old etiquette ways. The etiquette though with save the dates versus formal invitations is your save the dates are very minimal, and that's usually where you have a photo of the couple, usually from engagement, shoot, stuff like that. And then for your formal invites, you don't do any photos or anything of the couple, and it's basically supposed to be like the aesthetic of your wedding, and it's where you're a little bit more creative in that sense, like more artsy. Also have to give a shout out to Brittany, one of my bridesmaids, because she came over this week after work one day and we worked on putting all this together for 5 hours, got through like 60%, and then I did the remaining the next night by myself. So there was at least a good 10 hours in assembling them. That's not even counting the time that I was in Canva creating designs. You'll see that I also printed on vellum paper again. It was way more time consuming than the previous vellum on my save the dates. So I'd say there's a good 20 hours that went into just the creativity, the planning, and all of that. How I assembled these, just basically from the start. So I got these green envelopes from Amazon. Then I actually just got a white pen off of Amazon. We just did the same embosser that I got off of Etsy, which I go in more detail about it in my save the date video, so definitely go check that out, but I can also link the Etsy shop down below. Here, these are just 5x7 vellum jackets. I got them off Amazon, and then I just fed them into the printer and had them print out these trees. I just got the image off of Google, popped it in Canva, and just printed. So it was actually pretty easy. And I love how this turned out. Which, like I said, this is supposed to encapsulate like your aesthetic, your theme of your wedding, and the more like artsy side of it. So just a reminder, it'll be like in basically the little forest of Montana outside of Glacier Park. I'm definitely going to post this after the wedding, and that way I don't have to blur all of these things. The other thing I really liked that I saw on TikTok, which to be honest, I didn't execute this as well as I wanted to because it was kind of hard to get the measurements right, but I love when people do the inserts in the envelopes. I just did the same photo, printed it on regular printer paper, and then some of them I did just print it black and white. But, so I have these. I used this guy, which these are actually pretty affordable. I think you can get them for like $10 off Amazon. And I just used these to cut the shape out that I needed. What I do is I just put this in here. My nails are very, very busted from all of this crafting. But I just line up the little edges, make sure it's centered. roughly. And then I just use my finger to make that crease. Okay, and then I have that pre-crease, then I'll just push it down. I actually ran out of these, but I bought a bunch of these on Amazon, and they're so nice because you just like drag it and it will put a little sticky tape. So that's what I had been using on these, as well as to seal the envelopes. But like I said, ran out on my last few, so I actually am just using a glue stick. Oh, also you want to make sure you do the embossing before you put in the liners, just because you don't want the emboss to come through on the liner when it's open, if that makes sense. If you did the embossing after this step, then it would show up here like a backwards T and G. So that's why I just make sure you do that before. Envelope is prepped. Now for the inserts. So I got all of these, I built all of these on Canva, and then I actually used printed.com to print these out, which I'll get more into the price details later. Now is the moment of truth though. Was it worth saving the money? Which also, I should say, it took like really not that long. I want to say like a week for them to be printed and like get to me, and I didn't pay for express shipping. Oh my gosh, these turned out exactly how I wanted. I know I'm being very dramatic right now, but you know, when you're just like have a vision for something and you hope that it turns out the way you have in mind. Wow, this is so cool. All guests got 3, and then my bridal party got more. So this one is our formal invitation. It says, together with their families, Taylor Hanson and Gwyneth Thomas request the pleasure of your company at their wedding, Saturday, October 4th at 3:30 p.m. It has the address, and then it says reception to follow. And again, I really wanted all of these mountains, so I had these trees matched for the vellum and the lining, and then you'll see I use the same mountains graphics throughout all the wedding suite. So then the next thing that I wanted was a little RSVP QR code. Our wedding website does have a password, so I printed that there. A few things to note is QR codes, most of them do expire, but if you create the QR code in Canva, then it won't expire. And you can also change the color, which was cool. I don't know, just like the little details of it being green instead of white and black are nice. So we have please respond by August 15th. That's about 6 weeks out for us for the weddings. And just since it's like a destination wedding, I feel like people will have decided by then, hopefully, if, you know, they need to book travel and whatnot. Guys, I get putting a password can be a little annoying. However, I've learned that even if I'm not walking around telling everyone our URL, you can easily just Google Gwyneth Wedding, and it's the first thing that's gonna pop up is our Zola website. So for that reason, just the fact that regardless of social media or whatever you're choosing to post, people could just easily go find your wedding website, and I didn't feel very comfortable with that, so that's why I wanted to put a password on it. And what's nice though is when you use this password the first time, it will remember your device, and so as long as my guests are still, you know, using their phone that they had used this for, like, it's not gonna make them put it in every time, which I think will be nice, especially the week that we're all in Montana. I also wanted just a little details card, so I made it pretty tiny. Again, we still have the mountains. I love it so much. And so I just said, details, please plan to arrive 15 minutes prior to the ceremony. Formal attire is requested, including suits, dresses, or pantsuit. Please note the bridal party color is forest green. Airport to fly into. I've already packed all of the bridal party, but for those that are invited to the rehearsal dinner, I just did a little reminder. So it's the exact same setup as the RSVP one. Like I did the same sizing and everything, moved the mountains around a little bit, but it just said reminder, rehearsal dinner, the date, the time, the address, and then at the bottom I just said dinner and drinks to follow. So now to pack all of these up. This angle is not my friend. So the white pens that I got were, I think, like $2. These are the same envelopes that I used for my save the date. So I got a pack of 50 for $9.88, and I got 2 of those. The embosser, which I think I spent about $40 on that. So next would be the liners. So this was just, you know, photocopy paper and ink. The ink, though, it used a lot of color. I mean, the one that I chose to print was very detailed. So we actually went through 2 things of ink. And ink is not cheap, so we are going to say that was about $60 in ink. Just the regular printer paper, it's pretty affordable. We'll just say like $5. Vellum paper 5x7, 120 of them was $16.99. Okay, then next would be all of these inserts. I built these on Canva, which that was free. To print all of these on Canva would have been over $300 for all the inserts because I needed 120 of each. So I actually use printed.com, which they are based out of the UK, but very, very affordable. They have so many wedding things. Like, you can get signs and like canvases, and you can customize a lot of things, and they're very, very affordable, which I feel like still the quality of paper and stuff that I got on this was very good. So for printed, like I said, that was out of the UK. And I'd say shipping on it was about $35, but it still got to me in less than a week. I will say one of the bright sides with Canva is if you print, you could have it printed with FedEx, so then you could just pick it up within a couple hours. So if you're on more of a time crunch, that might be worth spending more money. I think you can also expedite shipping for printed.com, so that also might be a good route to go. I just did regular shipping, but anyways, to print off 120 of the formal, 120 of the RSVP, 120 of the detail cards, and 20 of the rehearsal dinner cards, which were this size, plus $30 to ship from the UK. My total that I paid to do all this was $142. Okay, so a 4-pack of these was $6.99. And then the other tool that I used just to cut all of the inside lining is this, which was $10. All of these wax seals, they're sold in a pack of 50 for $13. And so I got 2 packs of them, so that would be another $26. And then the final amount, because I've learned that because there are wax seals, you have to do 2 stamps instead of 1. I don't fully understand it because I thought that stamps are based off weight, and I forget what it is, but definitely my invites they're like half the weight for a stamp, like associated with a stamp. But they said the fact that there is a wax seal, I needed to put another stamp. The only thing I could think of for that is I've heard there's like the way they process things, like they go through these little feeders. So maybe they don't put them through the feeders if there's wax seals, and for that reason it costs more, and that's why you need to pay more for the processing. That's what I think the logic is, but you know, I don't work there and I don't know anyone that does work in USPS to ask these questions. I guess I could Google some more, but anyways, so postage is going to be 2 stamps per invite. So in total, I got 200 stamps for $146, which brings the grand total for all of these invites to be $476.24, which that was to make 120 invites. So that means it costs roughly $3.96 to fully create, address, assemble, ship each invite. So keep that in mind as you are customizing things. I just really had a vision of what I wanted these to look like, and I didn't want to stray from that. So for me, there's a lot of parts to my wedding that I genuinely am, I don't want to say I don't care about, but I'm just indifferent. Like, I personally don't care that much about flowers. I don't care if they're real. I don't even really care what kind they are. Our venue was gifted to us, so there we're saving a lot of money. So for those reasons, these things that I find more joy in, like I way prefer doing the invitations as well as figuring out the aesthetic for like our table setups and things like that at the wedding. those are what are bringing me more joy than I'm a little indifferent about food. Like, I want us to have good food, but it doesn't need to be everyone's best meal they've ever had, and it's not going to be like fancy steak or anything. It's probably going to be something a little more casual. So all that to say, there's other areas of my wedding where I will be cutting back costs, but this was one where I was very excited about the process. I had a vision and I'm okay with spending that money to get there. I have been talking to this camera for like an hour, so I'm hoping that I did a decent job editing, make this shorter for you guys. But anyways, I will let y'all go. Thank you for listening in. Let's chat down below in the comments. Also hope you subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in my next video. Bye.